Calling from a 256 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello. I'm calling from the middle of Appalachia in Alabama. I am a huge fan, though I may be a lone voice in the wilderness. I've tried to be an activist here. You have to understand where we live, and when I say we, I mean my comrades. They live in most times total squalor with an infrastructure failing. And when I say infrastructure, I mean my own toilet doesn't flush at this point. How do we improve our progressivism? There's a lot of talk about allowing asylum from other countries, but how do we fix the problems in rural Appalachia? And I wish I could say more, but I don't want to waste your time.
Well, look, I appreciate the call, and this has been a question that has been dogging, for whatever reason, this country for 90 years.
True.
Eleanor Roosevelt toured there. RFK toured there.
Well, we saw here the New Deal be immediately disassembled. In Alabama, so-called Democrats who were never progressive were allowed to see integration pass in the late 60s and then shun them and watch white flight happen. I'm sure you're familiar with Anniston, Alabama, where the Freedom Riders bus was burned. There was a large white flight that happened afterwards, and now you see Anniston being a predominantly minority school with most of the white children around here either moving or put into a private school. And I'm in a place where, as I say, infrastructure has failed to the point where honestly, sewage is a problem. And
Jeez.
You'll notice that in the Black Belt of Alabama, there are open sewers, and it's not just there. I can't even get a dog catcher in my area. How would you, honestly, how would you approach sharpening the progressive handle or the progressive, blade and moving on to actually doing something that will get things done with a population that is undereducated, that has been duped into the Republican ideology of thinking that.
I think in terms of Alabama at this point, like it's got to be. Well, first of all, I will say this: that whole pull yourself up by a bootstrap, your own bootstraps, that was a joke.
Of course, it's a lie.
Originally,
Absolutely.
not just a lie.
Mark Twain
it
joke?
was
Was it a Mark Twain?
literally coined as mocking people who say that people who are in a situation similar to yours can rise above this. Like it was literally supposed to mean you can't lift yourself up by your own boots. It's physically impossible.
Let them eat cake.
Right. And
let them eat cake.
I mean, the only thing I would
it.
tell you is that, it's a long-term project, but I would say start advocating for specific demands rather than make it about a party or anybody who's going to deliver this. Start to get agreement amongst people as to what should be the rights of individuals to have in a society like that. So make it not a partisan thing. Make it not an ideological thing. Make it just simply a material thing. Like, hey, man, we should have, the rest of the country has functioning sewers. We should have functioning sewers.
Yeah, I was going to point to
functioning
that.
schools.
That seems like schools,
we should have basic infrastructure. We should have this, and we should demand.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome here. You can come here where I am and see the way that they're just so blinded ideologically that it's almost impossible, especially when you add the religion on top of it, where
right.
their treasures are in heaven, is what they always tell me, and it's problematic, and sometimes the plight of what happens in Appalachia seems to be overshadowed by the plight of those in other places, and I do see a certain amount of irony in the fact that, and I do see the irony in the fact that these asylum seekers, I'm told the same thing in my town for being an atheist socialist, that you should just move somewhere else if you don't like it here, which is It seems to be a zero-sum game, Sam. I appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah, can I add something to that?
Goddamn right, caller. Thank you.
Can I add a serious point to that?
Zero-sum game's serious point.
And that is, the perception that it is a zero-sum game, because it is right now, is terrible for everyone, I think. We don't want, as socialists, we don't want a bigger piece of the pie for working people. We want to obliterate that whole concept, or like Sean said the other day, we want the fucking bakery. And to that point, and the Democrats have not offered any kind of compelling vision, especially in states like you're talking about in Appalachia. But in addition to a history of just being utterly beaten down, these states have a history of massive labor struggle, and it's a rich history. Like one of the biggest labor battles in U.S. history was the Battle of Blair Mountain in West Virginia, which now I think they're trying to decertify as a historic place, which is ridiculous. But we see this coming back in red states with the teacher strikes. A lot of these strikes were in red states with Republican-controlled legislatures, and they won because they wielded their power as workers and their solidarity with one another to get wins, even from Republicans.
Hey, maybe next time you call, I hope you call again. Maybe, I don't know, if you have any ideas about how we could be helpful. I'll be curious to hear about that.
Those kinds of things. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you and Sam. You all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
man.
Thanks. And one more thing, in places where the Democratic Party is at such a low point, I think there are more openings for progressive people to come in and win Democratic primaries in a way that they might not in a Democratic stronghold like New York.
Definitely. The problem is that Democrats have a tough time winning there regardless of what they're offering. Because, there is also a long history of white identity politics there. I can't remember his name right now. Who wrote that book about the communists in Alabama?
Robin Kelly.
Yeah. And
Communism in Alabama. A zero-sum game.
There was
Robin.
a lot of workers who were basically not interested in organizing because of the blackitude.
That's definitely true. I want to just say that history is really interesting because there's numerous examples of precisely what you're talking about, and there are a few counterexamples like the Wilmington, North Carolina. It's both examples. It was a multiracial Reconstruction city that was governed in a relatively progressive way, and then there literally was an oligarch-funded white supremacist coup. But that being said, there are some lines and some lineages of cross-racial politics as well. So we got to kind of choose our historical examples to some extent as well. But I have no doubt what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, but where does this ideology come from? It comes from the ruling class. It does not come in a grassroots fashion from the bottom. It's not an ahistorical force. It's used by the ruling class to divide workers from each other. Not always in a directly conspiratorial way, but that's the way it functions. And it's not easy. It's not easy to overcome this messaging that you get from, corporate media about race, about gender, about gay people, whatever. But one inspiring counterexample is the strike documented in the movie Harlan County, USA. I know I brought this up before, but it happened in 1973 in Southeast Kentucky, and black workers and white workers worked together, and they won. They largely won. So